With all the technology we have today, why are we still drowning in garbage? Have you ever thought about simply throwing it all into space? It sounds logical. Take tons of waste, load it onto a rocket, and launch it straight into the sun. Problem solved, right? Wrong. Extremely wrong. This idea actually made it to NASA's discussion tables, and the answer was an immediate and absolute no. But what few people know is why. The reason involves risk so high that even a single miscalculation could cause a disaster on a global scale. And the scariest part, with the rise of private companies, someone might try it. And the world is not prepared for what could happen. All around the planet, garbage silently piles up. Plastic bags float in rivers as if they were part of the landscape. Mountains of waste grow in the outskirts of cities like open scars of uncontrolled consumption. According to the UN, we already produce over 2 billion tons of waste per year, and if nothing changes, that number will exceed 3.4 billion by 2050. Meanwhile, we send probes to Mars, telescopes to deep space, and even an electric car to orbit the sun. So why don't we just throw our garbage off the Earth? If we've already sent machines beyond Pluto, why can't we send a trash bag? The answer seems within reach, but what lies behind this question is far more frightening than you imagine. The idea of throwing trash into space may seem futuristic, even absurd, but it has been taken seriously by real scientists. During the 1980s and 1990s, NASA engineers discussed real possibilities for orbital disposal, especially when it came to nuclear waste or extremely high-risk biological material. At first glance, the reasoning was elegant. Carefully seal the waste in reinforced capsules, place everything in compartments with thermal and radiological protection. Then use rockets to send them directly into the sun, where any trace would be incinerated within seconds. It sounds clean, efficient, even poetic. But this is where science reveals what we don't always see. There is an uncontrollable variable: human and technical failure. Even with all the advances, no rocket is 100% reliable. According to public data from NASA and SpaceX, the average failure rate of orbital launches ranges between 1% and 3%. It seems low, until we remember that each launch involves tons of explosive fuel, moving parts, and, in scenarios like this, potentially toxic waste. Now imagine, a rocket carrying radioactive waste successfully takes off. Everything goes well, until a small pressure leak, a short circuit, or a failure in the secondary ignition. Explosion, and an invisible toxic cloud spreads through the skies, carried by the wind, entering the jet stream, crossing continents. This is not fiction, it's statistics. It was this real and measurable risk that made the international scientific community firmly reject the proposal. Not for lack of capacity, not for lack of will, but because when it comes to dangerous waste, there is no margin for error. In space, the margin is zero. According to Donald Kessler, former NASA analyst and the man who formulated the Kessler syndrome, a domino effect where collisions between space debris trigger a chain reaction, creating even more fragments, the situation is grave. Adding more trash to space could turn Earth's orbit into an uninhabitable environment for decades. Imagine this: billions of debris fragments orbiting Earth at speeds over 28,000 kilometers per hour, where even a small piece can cause catastrophic damage to satellites vital for telecommunications, weather forecasting, and even the GPS navigation we use daily. But that's just one of the dangers. In 2006, the United States National Research Council published a rigorous study pointing out that launching nuclear waste into space presents an unacceptable public health risk. If a rocket carrying radioactive material exploded during launch, a real possibility, considering space launches still have a 1% to 3% failure rate, contaminants could spread over densely populated areas, threatening millions of lives. And there's more. Sending waste to the sun is not as simple as it sounds. While a typical launch to the International Space Station requires an orbital velocity of about 9 kilometers per second, Sending a payload to the sun requires nearly triple that speed, about 30 kilometers per second. Why? Because it's not enough just to leave Earth. You need to slow down Earth's orbital motion around the sun so that the trash doesn't just keep orbiting with Earth, but actually falls into the sun. But what if, despite all these dangers, someone decided to try? Before even thinking about launching trash into space, we already have an invisible enemy out there: space junk. According to the European Space Agency, ESA, there are currently over 36,000 objects larger than 10 centimeters in orbit, traveling at speeds exceeding 28,000 kilometers per hour, fast enough to destroy a satellite with a single impact. And that doesn't even count the millions of smaller fragments, nearly invisible, floating throughout the region around Earth. Each rocket launch, even the most modern ones, increases the chances of collision, a chain reaction that could turn Earth's orbit into a true minefield, practically impassable for essential satellites for our communications, weather forecast, and even the GPS we rely on every day. And here's the little known fact: until today, no country has ever successfully launched trash toward the sun. Not even the most secret space programs of Russia, China, or other powers have officially confirmed any orbital disposal of hazardous waste. So if someone tries, they will be pioneers and may trigger consequences the world has never seen. NASA said no, not for lack of will, but out of technical awareness and responsibility. Launching trash into space isn't a solution. It's a dangerous shortcut that simply pushes a huge problem into an even more uncontrollable scenario. The real way out of the waste crisis lies here, on Earth, in reducing consumption, advancing recycling technologies, and sustainable management that respects our planet. But until that future becomes reality, the idea of sending our trash off planet will keep popping up, and worse, representing a risk that few truly understand, until it's too late. And the scariest part? With the rise of private companies and the popularization of reusable rockets, there is no real barrier stopping someone somewhere from trying this plan alone. And if that attempt fails, there will be no plan B